Welcome back. Our rolling coverage of the World Economic Forum Africa Summit continues right here on News Today. And now we cross live to Durban, where economics editor Thandeka Kubule is standing by. And over to you, Thandeka.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. We are joined today by the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Pravin Gordhan, who joins us from Durban at the World Economic Forum. One of the themes of this 2017 World Economic Forum is the issue of inclusive and value-driven leadership. Mr. Gordhan, many people say that Davos man is dead and that he has been killed by the rise of populism in Western democracies, and that Davos man is being rendered irrelevant by the growing popular uprisings or popular movements throughout the world as well. Is he still relevant, and has he been eclipsed by his own style of elitist leadership?
Yeah, the concept of Davos man is an interesting one. I think it reflects a leadership style and a leadership content which is firstly alienated from ordinary people, where elites, both political and economic, find some common ground in terms of serving their own self-interest. Thirdly, either wittingly or otherwise, they generate the levels of inequality that you see both, if you like, horizontally across the globe, but vertically within societies as well. But at the same time, we must be aware that Davos man is a resilient man, that there are deep interests that actually go with Davos man or Davos women, because women are there as well. And the debates that we have today and the kind of rebellion, if you like, that is emerging from citizens is a justified one, because it's actually saying to us leaving the majority of people behind is not good enough. Having 8 people, rich people, controlling wealth which is equivalent to the wealth of 50% of the world's population is not good enough. That democracy seems to work for a few, although formally we all have the right to vote. Ultimately, it's been captured in one way or another to serve the few rather than the many. And so it's very relevant for business, civil society and governments to discuss another way, a new economic model which serves all people, including in South Africa, all South Africans, a new ethical model where leaders must once again search for the right values and serve people rather than themselves, and be seen to be doing so, and provide evidence that they're doing so. And thirdly, prepare for the future.
Let's reflect on your future and on your leadership journey, Minister, which started out here in Durban in the late 1960s and took you through the 70s. And it was a different style of leadership back then, far more rooted in communities and in leading a multiplicity of stakeholders. Then your journey into government and almost into Davos man, and back now in leadership of a people more broadly. Can you reflect on that?
Yeah, I think I'm fortunate I never became Davos man. So let's settle that in the first instance.
All right.
But we've tried as activists to sustain the values that we learned during the struggle, ever mindful of the fact that whilst we have to manage complex economies and complex fiscal environments, at the end of the day, we must serve our own interests as South Africans, but be very aware that South Africa is not an island. It's very much part of the globe. And the conversations around inclusivity, inequality, and poverty are today no longer South African conversations. They're global conversations. And as you correctly pointed out at the beginning, if enlightened people are not fast off the block, so to speak, and begin to provide answers which satisfy citizens, citizens are going to feel inclined to follow the wrong kind of populism, as the Dutch Prime Minister called it on one occasion. And we have to be careful that the wrong kind of politics is not bred by very narrow self-interest as well. So in South African terms, We need to raise issues and have thorough debates about how do we get out of what we call state capture. How do we minimize the levels of corruption that we might be seeing, both in the private sector and in the public sector as well? How do we create a new set of norms, particularly amongst young people who are leaders of the future? And above all, generate some kind of unity of purpose amongst all South Africans so that we can meet some of the national challenges, but also the global challenges that face us.
Minister, former Minister, the issue of leadership is not about positions. Leaders can lead small communities, they can lead themselves, and they can lead for others. How do you see activism, leadership, and how does that relate to the issues of economic growth?
No, you're absolutely right. In any situation, for example, if there's a fire here or a threat of fire, somebody will start marshalling people in the right direction. And they have no formal tag called leader. In a strike situation or community protest situation or in a crisis that's facing a community, you will have, surprisingly, people beginning to emerge to hold members of that community together and create some kind of common purpose. Where activism fits in is how do you energize people? How do you get them involved? How do you make them less disconnected from what is happening around them, so that they play an active part in shaping their environment, but shaping their destinies at the end of the day as well. And it's linked to economics, and a better economic future is clearly where we require a new brand of economic activism, which we might call entrepreneurship, which we might call the startups, as they're called in some parts of the world. But each of those require initiative, they require imagination, they require an element of hope, and a belief that you can actually succeed, even if you fail in the first instance. And that, I think, is what has inspired South Africans over many, many decades, and should inspire us over the next few decades as well.
What of your own future, former Minister? Where are we going? Where are you taking your own leadership role?
Well, it's about a month since I've been relieved of my responsibilities, so in the first instance I'll remain a Member of Parliament for now, and then reflect a bit on the years that you've talked about, and ask myself the question, how best can I contribute to enhancing South Africa into a better position, and in what role can one actually do that? So it's time out for a short while we contemplate on that.
Well, it's time out for us too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back to you in the studio.